This is Hawaii News Now.
And now I'm joined by American Savings Bank CEO Ann Teranishi. Good to see you.
Great to see you too.
Welcome, and thanks for being here with us. And here's the magazine, the front cover of Hawaii Business, the CEO of the Year. Congratulations on that again.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, and we got to see the event that you were honored at, and so many. What struck me, I think, from that day was the fact that there were just so many wonderful people who helped get you to where you are today.
Yeah.
Tell us about what that meant for you.
It's all a bit overwhelming, as I've shared with some folks, but just such a privilege and an opportunity to thank so many of the people who've helped me along in my journey, and several of them were at the event, and so it was especially a wonderful opportunity to thank them, publicly. They're sometimes behind-the-scene leaders or people who've helped me early on in my career, or even in my work today. So that was definitely the best part of the event on Thursday.
Yeah, and it kind of struck me about what everyone said about you and all the articles and all the coverage and just people talking about you earning this honor is just how humble you are, the calm, the steady, compassion. These are just some of the words that they use to describe you, right? Courage, clarity. Being a leader in these times is very difficult. Mm-hmm. I mean, you've gone through several different issues over the course of your career. What really has kept you calm and steady through all of it?
I think what's anchored me, and maybe in the last 5 to 10 years I've come to really understand it, is being focused on the people around me, around the organization. So like as a bank, we support customers and community and our teammates. So, when things get a little hectic or stressful, kind of anchoring back to what do people really need and want to hear from leadership. And you might feel a little bit anxious, but it doesn't really help anybody else if you can't kind of let people know things are going to be okay. I might not have all the answers, or we don't know what exactly the path will look like, but we're going to work on it together, and I'm going to share as much as I can with you as we kind of navigate the next steps. So that helps me a lot. And then just really staying close to people. How are people really feeling? So, you kind of temper and change your approach depending on the temperature of the group of people that you're supporting and working with.
Yeah, I mean, you've been through a lot of major things.
Yeah.
The pandemic.
Yeah.
We talked about the Maui wildfires.
Right.
And of course the sale from Hawaiian Electric Industries.
Yeah.
I mean, just when you think one thing
Yeah.
is the big thing, you move on to like bigger challenges.
Right.
How have you been able to navigate those? Like you said, you've had a lot of support. You've had kind of the time to really listen to your folks. For folks that are listening to this, how do you continue to navigate ongoing challenges? So for next year, I guess, if we look forward, a recession, right? We're talking about people continuing to struggle.
Yeah, I mean, economists all have different views on what might happen next year. I think, fortunately for us, I think Hawaii is a fairly resilient community. But I do think as a community bank, we're always looking for being of service and support to our customers, both individuals and businesses. So that's definitely on our mind. But to go to your question on how do you get prepared for all of that? I feel like I'm starting to sound like an older person, but I do think turns at the wheel, experiencing difficult leadership challenges or difficult issues that you're navigating together as a team, it builds sort of a familiarity with uncertainty. It builds a certain level of comfort that you can pull ahead and work on things and come to resolution. Sometimes it's not the path or the resolution that you expect, but you have to have faith that if you work with integrity and you kind of work with a sense of purpose and in close communication with people, it will turn out. Mm-hmm. So I 10 years ago, I don't think I could have done the job of CEO and president. I think it does take some time and experience and lessons learned and kind of building some fortitude, because the uncertainty just gets bigger, I think, as you progress in your career.
Yeah, well, and I think this is a common question also that people might have asked you, is when you look back at all of these kind of challenges and you emerged successful, but during it, did you have any kind of regrets or mistakes that you learned from and grew from?
Yeah, I mean, I think any leader worth their salt will have to admit they've made mistakes. I mean, I make mistakes every day. Some I'm aware of, some I may not know. I tend not to live with a lot of regret. I kind of feel like, you know, you can't really look backwards. You can only learn from the experience that you have. So I don't spend a lot of time like looking backwards, except to learn, okay, how would I want to do, you know, this communication better? How would I want to make better decisions? How would I want to work with this team in a different way? But I do think, of course, we all make mistakes. We try to like lessen the number of mistakes that you make, but you know, nobody can navigate without making mistakes. So
Yeah.
it's the reality. I think being kind of authentic and truthful, like, hey, I didn't think about that. Next time, let's figure out how to be better prepared for that. I think that's how leaders should and need to navigate, as opposed to, well, this context was the situation that made it not possible for us to be successful. You have to own, you know, the things that didn't go well as much as you own the things that went well.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's the trait of a strong leader like yourself when you talk to folks is being able to take those mistakes and kind of move on and learn from them, right?
Yeah.
So for American Savings Bank, of course, you guys celebrating 100 years.
We're so excited about that. We're so excited.
And big year. You were independent. You again, the first year being local, still local.
Yeah.
But independent. Why was that important for you to keep that local? Because you could have sold it.
Yeah.
You know, to mainline company or something.
We did. I mean, we sold to new ownership. I think what we are so proud of is, you know, our executive leadership team is intact. The vision and mission of staying in service to our Hawaii community remains our strategy and our focus. And that was everything. We really, I can't thank our leadership team and our teammates and our community and our customers for trusting us during what was a little bit of an uncertain time. I think they looked to individuals, not just me as CEO and president, but you know, our branch managers, our relationship managers, our executives and senior leaders out in community. And so we couldn't have timed it more perfectly. We worked really hard. This time last year, I was, as we were driving down here to the studio, I was reflecting. This time last year was a little bit of a hectic, busy time. But we were really focused on getting the transaction done by the end of the year. So come January 8th, our actual 100th birthday, we could stand in front of our teammates and say, we're in a great position. We're primed for the next 100 years, and we want to be here to serve our community. So it wasn't a timing we were totally in control of, but it worked out well. So there was something in the universe working in our favor, maybe definitely a lot of hard work, a lot of folks coming together, but also just amazing timing.
Yeah, and congratulations on navigating that. Like I said, so
Yeah.
many challenges, but that in itself, I am sure, was such a relief for your folks, right?
100%, yeah.
Yeah.
And to it's an unusual situation to close, to announce and close a bank transaction like that in the same day. So I think people were pleasantly surprised, and the feedback we've received since then has just been overwhelmingly positive. And the way that you said is that we continue to be able to serve this community that we all deeply, deeply care about and want to continue to serve for many decades to come.
And of course, as we go into this kind of uncertain year, more uncertainty, I think the question for a lot of folks is, how can they navigate, as someone in the banking industry, what would your advice be to them to navigate some of these uncertainties? You know, more debt, cost of living. I mean, I feel like we talk about it every year, but nothing really moves the needle. Like, what are you seeing on your end as a executive?
Yeah. Well, right now, I think many of us in both the banking and business community, in fact, I was with a series of, a bunch of amazing business leaders yesterday evening, and I would want people to know that I think the people in the roles like myself in other banks or other organizations really care deeply. I don't know that we feel like we have all the answers, but we know that there are some challenges around affordability and really making sure that each of us in the organizations that we serve in are doing whatever we can to help move the needle around affordability. So for American Savings Bank, one of our focus areas is around affordable housing, and not just we'll be ready to do loans on a mortgage loan, but also looking for ways that we can partner, because not everybody views the bank as the first place that they want to talk to as they're struggling through getting onto the housing journey, which might first start off with a rental and eventually home ownership. What we're seeing in amongst our customers is, I think we kind of serve the everyday working population of of Hawaii, and American Savings Bank really prides itself on supporting that that segment of our community. So we, I think, are the only bank that has a 7-day-a-week branch network. So we are trying to meet and serve our community in the way that they show up and that their work and personal lives demand. And so there's no easy solution. I think we're all working to figure out how can we make Hawaii better, and I think we're open to different ideas. We've been partnering a lot with other nonprofits, with government, with other organizations to find pathways forward. But for us in the near term, we've been doing a lot around affordable housing. The other place is around construction, so supporting small construction companies to make sure that they really are there to help support the building needs for getting more supply out there.
I wanted to ask you about that, because those were like some of your very important programs, right? The one about for Native Hawaiians.
Yes.
Yeah. What was that one called again? And just give us an update on that as well.
Yeah. Well, there are a couple of programs that we've done. The construction one in particular was called Hui Kapili. So we've done 2 cohorts of small to medium-sized construction and remodeling businesses. So some of them are focused on home building or home remodeling. We want to make sure that they have a pathway forward. We've supported a number of programs like the DHHL. We're a approved lender for DHHL mortgages. We've partnered with Hawaii Community Lending to provide them funding through the Federal Home Loan Bank of Des Moines match funding program to give them more ability to provide counseling and support to get more Native Hawaiians into homes. We've also done a deposit-backed mortgage program with OHA. So always looking for ways that we could, banks have a lot of regulation and a little bit of constraint if you're only looking at it black and white, but how can we think a little bit outside of the box in a way that still honors the requirements that we have with trying to do a little bit more. So I'm really proud of a lot of the leaders who've thought creatively and partnered with key leadership in other sectors to find ways to do more.
Is there, if you had a wish list of programs that you think would really benefit the community that hasn't been done yet?
Yeah.
What would it be? What would be on that?
Yeah, I feel like the concept of financial literacy and education is veiled in, it's very difficult to do. I'm proud of the work ASB has done around our Keikiko business competition, or other ways that we've been partnering, particularly with the DOE and other schools, to kind of normalize and make conversation about basic financial skills a part of conversation.
What's the barrier? Because you come from a family that talked about money,
yeah,
right?
Yes, and I think we probably could have done more. I think if it was a bit more embedded into the educational fabric, if we were teaching young children about how to earn and save. Sometimes I think we're trying to shelter and protect them too much, but the whole concept of making mistakes while you're in a safe space. So I would encourage people to talk to whatever financial institution they work with. ASB has great programs for having children start to have accounts so that they can learn how to manage an account and use debit,
I remember
debit
the
card.
days when we had to balance books.
Yes,
you remember that?
I do.
They don't do
they don't do that. They don't do that anymore. But you still have to know how to balance your account in the sense of knowing, do you have enough in
money
or not, or you're watching your cash flow. And I do think. I think parents not being afraid to start that conversation, particularly if you have, young teenagers, help guide them. And we've all made mistakes, maybe through our life. How do we make sure that our children are better educated. So I think there's something there. I think there's a lot of people interested in it. There's lots of great nonprofits that are in this space. But, as a CEO and president of a bank, I would love everybody to be walking around feeling empowered and not afraid of the concept of managing their money or afraid of the concept of saving, especially, this busy holiday season, really kind of being thoughtful about how we spend, how we save, but also understanding the difficulties of the affordability challenges that we have here in Hawaii.
Yeah, I feel like when we talk about affordability, it seems to be the buzzword this year,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
Just across the country also. And what do you think is driving that? I mean, like we've talked about the housing costs,
Yeah.
right? And just shipping for us here as an
Right.
island economy.
Right.
Gosh, it just seems like so overwhelming for folks, right?
Yeah.
What would you share on that?
Yeah, well, I mean, I am not, unlike others where, I have two children, so kind of thinking about the cost of living, purchasing your first home or renting. I think we have more work to do in that space. I think, we've talked a lot about the out migration. While maybe, the more recent statistics have shown that it's slowed a little bit. I think in order to retain and attract the next generation of what we hope are leaders, we're really going to have to work together to figure that out. I think consumer sentiment is quite negative now. So I think, as we sit around the dinner tables or catch up with friends, we see the prices rising. We feel a little bit beholden to having to bring in so much of our food, for example, and what's happening in the national economy and at the federal level definitely has impact in Hawaii. So I think as an island community, we see each other up front. It's hard to pretend like we don't see the difficulties that exist in our community. I think we're all closely connected, so that gives us a little bit of a leg up in trying to problem solve around things. But I believe that the sentiment is grounded in real feelings. And I said, as a person focused on how people feel, it is concerning. And I do think it's showing up in conversations that we're in, personally and in business and in community and in government.
Yeah, and like we've been saying, having those conversations with family and with the children and,
Yeah.
Getting them really thinking about it early,
Yeah.
I think does help.
And I mean, just to add on to that, so like navigating that is, instead of it feeling like a spiral out of control, like talk about it factually. Like talk about, so when we talked about financial literacy or understanding, is like, let's talk about some of the metrics that you are hearing in from our in the news and you're reading about. Make sure you really understand, like, what does that mean for us? So when things spiral out of control, I often just say, like, okay, so what's within our control? What are people anxious about? How can we, as a family or as an individual, feel a little bit more in control when things feel out of control? And so I think you start more micro, because the macro environment can feel so overwhelming. Even in Hawaii, I think there's so many issues to address, but if we can kind of just focus in on, okay, so what can we do? And I think young people today get overwhelmed because they hear all the negatives. There's a lot of positives to work from, and there's a lot within your control, So that's kind of, how I talk to my children or young people that are asking. I was like, when things feel like they're spiraling, just bring it down to something like, okay, well, what could we understand and talk about today? What could we start working on for tomorrow? And then you start thinking longer term.
Yeah, and it's, again, it seems very characteristic of the leadership that you were talking about, very just calm, objective, kind of steady. During
boring. It's a little boring.
I was going to say, I feel like I can learn a lot from you, as a mom, fellow mom. I feel like when things get overwhelming, our emotions can, reflect toward our children.
Right.
And I wanted to transition and segue to, being a working mom, right? And a lot of those challenges for a lot of women out there, balancing career and their childcare and their children, I included.
Yes, 100%.
Yeah, and I guess as someone who's successfully navigated that as well and continues to, what would be your advice to all the women out there that are trying to navigate making tough choices?
Yeah.
right? Because whether it's their careers that they have to sacrifice or time with their children, you know?
Yeah, so I'm always pretty careful in trying to speak as if I come from a point of success as a parent, because I think the jury is going to be out on that for a while. I mean, you're a parent for life. And two thoughts I would share. One is, I think, who you choose as a partner, and I know not everybody has one, but if you're in the position to choose who you're going to partner with, if you choose a leadership position, is pretty important. Or the family support or friend support that you have around you is key with regard to raising kids. I feel like when you talk about making mistakes, I make mistakes every day. I feel like, listen, I have a 15-year-old and a 21-year-old, so I feel like 9 times out of 10, what comes out of my mouth is not the right thing. But I say that with great humbleness and interest, because I learn from them in, while my intent might be a certain way, how it's received is different. But I love being a parent. I think it's the greatest opportunity to learn and be very, very humble. Also, I just think if there are female leaders out there, I think you have to. There's like different seasons and times in our lives, so work can ebb and flow. But I also try to encourage folks that are looking for more senior executive roles. Don't be shy or embarrassed about recognizing that you enjoy the work that you do, that you are comfortable, and you would aspire to take on greater roles, because I think there is a tendency to feel guilty and feel bad because it's a sacrifice for your family, which it is. But I don't often feel like there's that same burden on our male counterparts. And so, like, the only way to change that is really to have more females that lean in, but it comes with sacrifice. That's the truth. But I also think if more are saying, I'm okay with the sacrifice, I have this family or friend network to support me in doing that, the more that we see in those roles, I think the more normal it becomes. Maybe the final thing I'll say is, often people might not ask women to do things because they say, well, she's a busy working mom. She's very accomplished like you are. I don't want to ask her to do those things. I always say, don't assume people will say no. At least give them the opportunity and let them decide. And they might shift something that they're doing now in order to do the new opportunity. But I think too often people make assumptions about working mothers, but also working parents in general, that I would say don't assume, at least ask and share opportunities, and then people can decide for themselves.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
I mean, I think generally too, if there's more support for female executives,
Yeah.
we would see more.
Yes.
We would see that's just my theory,
Yeah,
right?
we would see more. I was shocked when Jen Oblon, the editor-in-chief for Hawaii Business, shared just 9 of the top companies have women CEOs. I think we've been making good progress. I would say I see more
out of 100.
Yeah. So there's opportunity there, but I think we're making great progress. And it's not easy to take on a leadership role like that, but it's important that people do and feel supported. And I've been very fortunate. I shared at the event and in the article how lucky I've been that both men and women have been 100% supportive of me in my journey.
Yeah, well, and I think for some younger career professionals, young professionals, right? As they're embarking on their career, I know mentorship is big for you too. How are they able to find these mentors that you were able to find? I know that's been a challenge, especially for the young people now that had to go through COVID. And the connection that we grew up with, they didn't get.
Yeah.
Everything is on the device. It's just a different world, right? So
Yeah.
How do you meet mentors? How do you get help in your careers?
Yeah, again, I think because I'm older, I can see it as I reflect back. There have been so many people from my very earliest start in career as an attorney